Alrighty, hey kids, we're back. Module 2, still dividing. This is kind of the objective for lessons 21 and 22. It's pretty similar, but we are really getting serious about division now. So make sure you write down these notes so that you'll have some sample problems to practice on before you get into the book. We're continuing to round the divisor first. Again, that's going to be what we do each time. But we're looking seriously at how this divisor is going to mesh with our dividend. And we're also going to add to our strategy that if we don't get our first guess right, it's okay to erase and start over. And that's perfectly acceptable because we're going to have a lot of possibilities for putting a digit in the quotient. Like, is it going to be 7? Is it going to be 8? Is it going to be 9? The only thing we really want to watch out for is if you do such large rounding that you end up with a double-digit answer, you cannot have a 2-digit answer as your digit in the quotient because we're only doing one column at a time. So in addition to that division step, we're also going to be checking for accuracy and confirming that our answer here matches the dividend that we started with. So these are just some sample problems and kind of helping you get started thinking about what you can potentially work with as the number in your quotient. Also, as the numbers get bigger, we may end up with a 2-digit quotient. So you have to recognize that if 17 is the divisor, okay, unlike these two previous problems where I only have a single digit in the ones place, if I have a divisor that is small enough and a dividend that's big enough, I may need to have a 2-digit quotient. So, we're going to work with problems like this, but we'll pick it apart one at a time. So don't fret. We're going to get through this just fine. So lesson 21 problem set starts on page 109 with our new books. And we're going to divide, then check using multiplication. And the first one's done for you. And I don't really like the way they do the check here. I always use the standard algorithm, not horizontally, but vertically. And it just seems to be easier for me. I suppose you can do what you want, but that's what I'm going to do. So problem B. 67 is our divisor, and 148 is our dividend. So you have to think about, where do I put my first number in the quotient? Well, if I have multiple 67s, and you think about the value of 148, that's not really that big. If I was to round this, I wish I had a number like 70. 2 70s would get me up to 140. So that's a reasonable estimate to put in my quotient. Using 2 is reasonable. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply. 2 times 7, 14. 2 times 6 is 12, plus 1 is 13. I see that I'm very close. And when I have 14 as my remainder, I'm just going to stick that up there, but I'm also going to do my check so I can confirm that this is the correct answer. And I do that by taking my divisor and my quotient and multiplying them together to see how much is used. Okay, 7 times 2 is 14. Then 6 times 2 is 12, plus 1 is 13. That gives me 134 are used. But don't forget, you also have 14 left over that you want to add back. 4 plus 4 is 8. 3 plus 1 is 4. And the 1 comes down. Compare and make sure that you got that right. If you get that right, put a smiley face or a star or whatever makes you happy. And then move on. 73 is the divisor. 591 is our dividend. Now, 73 would not fit into 59, so we have to put our first digit in the quotient over here. Now, if I had 70 instead, remember we want to, in our estimating, we learned that we need to get as close to 59 with a multiple of 7 as possible. So my closest guess would be an 8, And then I can start working with that. And again, if we mess up with our first guess in our quotient, it's okay. We'll just erase it and start over. So 8 times 3 is 24, 56, 57, 58. And look how close we are. So you can, again, if you look at the difference between 84 and 91, that's very close. Or you can do the standard algorithm. It's really up to you. Whatever works. And then that's your remainder. Do your check. You don't have to write the word check, but after this one I'll probably stop doing that. Multiply and find out how many are all used. 8 times 3 is 24. 56, 57, 58. Add your remainder in. 7 plus 4 is 11, 9, and 5. And compare, and when we get our final answer and it matches, we're done. And we're happy because this needs to match. Let's do another one. I gotta keep an eye on this. Let's make sure you guys can see it. 94 is almost 100, okay? So if I look at 700 being divided by 100, I would guess 7. So I could put the 7 up here, and I can proceed. 7 times 4, 28, 63, 64, 65. And I can see what I get for my remainder, but uh-oh, that's really too big. So when you have this here, this is when that comparison steps. You cannot proceed with that. That's okay. Just erase it. 7 was too small. So we're going to bump it up so we can use more 94s. We need to use another whole 94. So make that 8 and start your multiplication process again. 8 times 4 is 32, and then 72, 75. Ah, look how much closer we are. We're only within 7. And so that's what today is all about. It's like recognizing that, yes, you can start and then stop and then go back and start over. Take your 94 times 8. This is the check. 8 times 4 is 32. 72 plus 3 is 75 plus 7. We get 759, and it matches, and we're happy. Move on. Couple more. Now we only have a few problems because these are kind of larger and potentially time-consuming and have a lot of room for mistakes. And again, take this apart. I have 6 hundreds, 5 tens, and this is not going to work for our first placement of the digit in the quotient. So 74 does not fit into 65. So we go all the way over here. Now if I use 70, I need a multiple of 7 that gets me close to 65. And I can use 9 because 9 times 7 is 63. So I can try that first, but don't forget, 9 times 4 is 36, and that's going to add a lot to my partial product. So let's lightly try it out. 9 times 4 is 36, and then 63, 64, 65, 66. Uh-oh, that would be too high. So this time, I don't even have to write in. I can see that that is too much. Long division is going to be a lot of thinking in your head about what potential numbers are going to be and where you would put that. So you're doing a lot of comparing constantly. So instead of using 9, let's use 8 because it was too big before. Remember, we got to have the Goldilocks number. 8 times 4 is 32. And then 56 plus 3 is 59. Now we just need to find the difference, and it's very simple. Oops. It is very simple for some people. Not for me today. Hopefully you noticed that. I always need the kids here to keep me on track. And then I have 61, and when you compare, you see that this is less than that. And that's fine. I can have a really huge remainder as long as it's not 74. If I had 74 here, I would have to bump that up. So remainder 61. 74 times 8. 8 times 4 is 32, 56, 59, plus our 61. That's a really big remainder. and then 15 and 653, and wham. Look at that. They match, and so we're very happy. Next one, 36 into 257. Look at the size of this. I cannot start here. I must go over to the ones place. And I can use 40 and a multiple of 4 that gets close to 25 might be 24, but I have a 6 there. So again, what should I choose? It's really up to you, and you're going to have lots of different guesses, and you will be erasing a lot. So if I consider this time that if I had a 6 times 4 was 24, it might be not quite right. 6 times 6 is 36, and then, but 6 times 4 was 24. Oops, sorry. 18, 19, 20, 21. So that's too small because I'm going to have a leftover of 41. So I can bump it up. So it's just about trying to find the right amount that would use up your 36s. So trying 7. 7 times 6 is 42. And then 7 times 3 is 21, plus 4 is 25. And look how close we are. So you want to get as close as you can without going over. And you don't want to have something that is so small up here that you have more than 36 left over, because that would mean you could have another set. So there are only 5 left over. Then check 36 times 7. 6 times 7 is 42. 21 plus 4 is 25, plus 5 as our remainder, and 257. And so, huzzah! Okay? All right, so this is a problem. Remember, like I was saying before, you will need to come up with a way to understand how these problems work together. That the divisor times the quotient will give you something close to this, and then you add that remainder on to get your actual dividend. Okay, but we need to explain the thought process. So how could I generate, that's a fancy word for make it, and solve at least one more division problem with the same quotient of 8 and the same remainder as the one below? And so remember, it's really easy. We just need to figure out, what could this number be? Well, if you think about yesterday's video and the strategy we were talking about, it's that, hey, consider the remainder. What if I had 5 here? Would that work? 5 into a number. Could I have 11 as a remainder? And that would be no, you cannot. So your number here needs to be larger than the remainder. Okay, so the divisor needs to be larger than the remainder. And so you get to just pick, choose. You choose any number. The lights move around. There we go. Choose any number greater than 11. Okay, so you choose. I'm going to choose 15. Okay, let's just say 15 for me. So I'll pick, you can pick something different. You could pick 25. And it doesn't really matter. You're going to solve your number times the quotient, your pick, times the quotient, and you use the check. So then use the check strategy. I can hear everybody at lunch. Time for lunch. Okay, 8 times 5 is 40. 8 times 1 is 8 plus 4 is 12. And then add the remainder. We need to have this, that they assigned it to us. We have to have 11. and then you would get 131, or in the proper order, 131. Okay? So when you end up with this, this is the number that it says you can generate and solve at least one more. And I know my answer when I use 15 as my divisor, I would get 8 with a remainder of 11 because I just did that in the check. Okay? So great strategy there, and you will probably be tested on that if you're using any Eureka math tests. They do love to throw those questions in there for you to prove that you can do it. And they'll give you different numbers, but you have to use that strategy. So choose any number greater than the remainder. Okay, 3 little word problems, and then I think we are done. Yes, done for the day. Assume that Mrs. Jiang's car travels 14 miles on each gallon of gas. If she travels to visit her niece, who lives 133 miles away, how many gallons of gas will Mrs. Jiang need to make the round trip? So look at that round trip. Now, if that's going to be 133 miles away, round trip is also 133 miles back. So you can't forget that. That's really an important step. So you want to add those two, and that would be a total of 266 miles in all. Okay, this is very important. You got to get that right amount. Then you take your 266 and you can divide it by 14 miles on each gallon of gas. Now, when you start your division, you might notice that 26 is divisible by 14. But how many times? So the first digit in my quotient will go over this tens place, okay? And if I had 2 times 14, I would have 28. So that's going to be too big. So I need to choose 1. And then multiply 1 times 14 and get 14. Do your subtraction and you get 12. And that's less than 14, so we are okay to go ahead. Bring down the 6. That's the brother step. I have 126 divided by 14. And again, if I had 10 and I wanted to divide, it would be really big. And so I'm going to guess a 9 because I can't use 10. That's too big. It's 2 digits. So 9 times 4 is 36. And thinking in my head that I'm right where I should be. 9 times 1 is 9, 10, 11, 12. And I know I have exactly the right answer. So go back to the question. How many gallons of gas will Miss Jiang need to make the round trip? 19 gallons of gas are needed. Okay, and then circle your answer and move on. Lewis brings 79 pencils to school after he gives each of his 15 classmates, who has 15 people in their class? That is not very many, an equal number of pencils. He will give any leftover pencils, to his teacher. How sweet. So 79 pencils to school, that's my total. And then he gives each of his 15 classmates an equal number. Remember, I said watch out for these words because it's telling you we're splitting the whole into equal groups. So step 1, 79 divided by 15. And we can't fit 15 into 7, so you have to use the whole grouping. And if I approximate, and again, I'm right in between 10 and 20, so I would guess, I don't know, about 5. So let's try 5. 5 times 5 is 25, and then 5 times 1 is 5, plus 2 is 7. So I'm super close with 4 remaining. So it says he will give any leftover pencils to his teacher. So the leftovers is what the teacher will get. The teacher will get 4 pencils. Okay, so lovely. But part B, let's say Lewis decides instead to also keep some pencils. So maybe he's getting low and he's going to take an equal share of the pencils along with his classmates. So if he is going to take an equal share, then I need to add 1 to the classmate total. But then we come back to the question, will his teacher receive more or fewer. So let's bump this up by 1, but I don't change the number of pencils that I have in all. We don't, like, pencils aren't falling from the sky. We only have 79 pencils to work with. So 16 is our new group that we're splitting them into. So since I'm using a different divisor, I don't know if 5 is going to work. I mean, I could try it. 5 times 6 is 30, but that would get me, oh, I'm so close, but that would get me 80, and that's too big. So erase it. Maybe you knew right away I couldn't use the same number. So 6 times 4 is 24, and then 4 times 1 is 4 plus 2 is 6. And so now I have the difference, and I have 15 remaining pencils. So will his teacher receive more or fewer? Well, if all the kids are splitting up, including Lewis, splitting up those 79 pencils and they all get 4, look how many the teacher gets. The teacher, woohoo, gets 15 pencils this time. Okay, that's more. That's more than last time. Than if Lewis doesn't take any. Okay, because he has a lot of friends, so that's how that all kind of works out this way. So the teacher's going to get 15 pencils. Almost, it's just almost enough to make another set, but it's not. And so he doesn't want anybody to be left out. So he says, oh, I'll just give all the extras to the teacher. So anyway, that is lesson 21. And I hope this video was helpful. If it was helpful and you're not a subscriber, hit subscribe and you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. So hope you guys have a great day. See you on the next one.